Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to contain my review of the latest summon showcase, Divine Deception, which features a brand new apostle, Faris, as well as a new Archangel Dragon, Gabriel. Now this showcase is a permanent one, 4% appearance rates for 5 stars. Everything here will be part of the permanent summoning pool going forward, but with the permanent summoning pool ever expanding in size, it is hard to obtain things off focus. You have a chance of doing it, but it's not all that likely, so there is still a real question here of whether or not you should summon. In this case, I think the answer is pretty clear. I'm going to say that for most players, this should be a skip. We have several different things coming down the pipeline that may make you want to pass on this showcase. First of all, it is the 2.5 year anniversary this month for Dragalia Lost, so at the end of the month we're likely to have a pretty lucrative summon showcase, a gala, and that's reason to save number 1. Number 2, we do often get collaborations in April, so we may get one of those. We may even get collaboration reruns in March if they want to rerun Monster Hunter to coincide with Rise's release on Switch. Reason number 3, right after the showcase, we're likely to get a Gala remix featuring our new combat android, Irene. She looks really tempting and exciting and new based on what was shown in this month in Dragalia Lost, although of course we don't know much about her kit just yet. And besides all of that, we just had a lucrative light summon showcase featuring Gala Reborn Jeanne, our best light dragon ever, not by a whole lot, but still very, very good. And Rosarda, one of the other apostles, was on that showcase as well. So I think that that's sufficient reasons to pass on this showcase. I'm only going to suggest you summon if you're really a dedicated Faris or Gabriel fan. Otherwise, I would definitely skip on this showcase. Let's talk about the Adventure and Dragon who are featured though at 5-star, because I don't think they're bad. I just think that in this current season of hit after hit after hit on these showcases, this is going to be one of the ones that you can safely pass on. Now, as for what else is featured here, since I did call out Faris and Gabriel are 5 stars, we do have 2 4-stars, Emma, Flame Lance, and Vojnoi, a Water Dragon. Glad to see 4 stars actually being featured. If we're not going to get new 4 stars, it's nice to actually get some of the old ones make a return at an appearance rate up. But neither of them are really a reason to summon. A couple of showcases ago, there was a prize banner, and I mentioned Patya being a strong reason to summon on that showcase. Emma doesn't rise to that level, and neither does Vojnoi. Vojnoi is just filler. He's nice to have because in the early game you get a lot of Moonlight Stones. You can use those to unbind him, and for a while, you're not going to have too powerful of 5-star water dragons, and they're not going to have a lot of unbinds. So for a time, Vojnoi will be a pretty good, serviceable water strength dragon, but he'll eventually be outclassed. And Emma's a good adventurer, but she's just fallen off. She doesn't see a lot of use in Volk in either solo or co-op play. She was kind of at her peak against Master High Midgard Sormer when that was really difficult content, but now that's a lot easier. Right now, I'd say her main use is for beginner players. If you're struggling with the Mercurial Gauntlet, she is a pretty good unit to run on flame teams and throw like Phoenix onto her. If you don't want to run a full healer in that, that's a pretty good solution that you can use, but I think that weapon stats have made the Mercurial Gauntlet a lot easier than it used to be, so you don't have to really rely on stuff like that as much as you once did. So all in all, I don't think the 4 stars here should really sway you one way or another. I think this is all about whether Faris or Gabriel are like a must-have favorite unit or favorite dragon for you, in which case, go ahead and summon, but be advised, that, I don't know, we have all these tempting banners. It's harder than ever to save up resources, as you may have seen. Y'all know who I ended up summoning for if you saw my intro sequence to this video, so I'll just leave it at that. But moving on to what's featured on the banner, we have Faris here, and then we have Gabriel. And I think I'm going to start with Gabriel for today, our featured dragon, and then we'll switch over to Faris. So she is a water element dragon, and one of the most exciting things about her was how she might connect to Pinon, since we saw how Ramiel had almost the perfect dragon abilities to synergize with Nevin, and they were sigil bound, and so we were hoping that Gabriel would kind of work the same for Pinon, and she does to a degree, but she doesn't speed up how quickly Pinon can release her sigil. So let's get into that. Her skill is just Angelic Devotion, deals a medium amount of damage, nothing too special, and inflicts frostbite. Doesn't seem to be a notable aspect of her character or kit here at all. Her abilities include Strength plus 60% for water, which is okay, and then Water Gabriel's Favor 2. If the user is attuned to water, activates the Gabriel's Love effect when the HP is restored. Gabriel's Love increases strength by 10% and defense by 50%, and grants a 1U shield that nullifies damage up to 10% of the user's maximum HP. This shield can stack with ordinary shields. Gabriel's Love will not stack, its effects are lost upon taking damage, and after activating, this ability will not activate again for 10 seconds. Okay, so you always get 60% strength if you're water, and when you restore HP, you get a visible buff called Gabriel's Love with 10% strength, 50% defense, and this 1U shield that mitigates damage or nullifies damage rather, less than or equal to 10% of your user's max HP. So you can heal often, so that's one thing. This is a visible buff, and this increases defense. So hypothetically, this would trigger double buffs and healing double buffs, so it would potentially loop, since the regen on healing double buff usually lasts more than 10 seconds, so that could be a way to potentially have good uptime on this. But of course, if you get hit, then you lose the shield, I guess, and then you lose the effect of the defense buff as well as the strength buff. So if you're trying to just constantly have high defense and 70% strength, and you're getting hit frequently, that's not going to work out too well. But the way that this synergizes with Pin-On is that when her sigil is released, at that point, her attacks have additional hits. Her basic combo has additional hits that heal her. And so the healing here is going to be able to activate this effect. And Pin-On's second skill, I think it's called like Divine Benediction. That skill gives her a really big strength buff, as well as a defense buff and 15% shield. But if she gets hit, she loses all of that. She loses her strength and defense buff. So basically the idea behind this is that having this extra shield from Gabriel's Favor as well as all this extra defense is a way of making it easier for Pin-On to keep uptime on her second skill, the Divine Benediction buff. Unfortunately, I just think that when it comes to Pin-On, like if you look at her damage potential, right, in simulation, in the DPS sim, even using Gala Reborn Poseidon and assuming perfect uptime on her second skill, which requires her to not get hit, even under those conditions, which are not that realistic because in Ayaha and Toha's Wrath, there are global AoEs, purple screen-wide AoEs that you can't avoid. Even under those conditions, her maximum DPS potential is not very high. So the fact that this is now only a 60% strength, or 70 if you count this, compared to Gala Reborn Poseidon, that's like effectively 104% strength, let's say. And I mean, this is going to actually, in real terms, this is going to make your uptime on your second skill better. But like even in a perfect world where your uptime on your second skill was ideal, Pin-On was still not a very good adventure, even with a great dragon and assumed perfect uptime on her second skill. So I think that for realistic use of Pin-On, this is going to make her better, but even her being better is still lower than she currently is in the sim, which is not very high. That's my point, I guess. And so unfortunately, I don't think that this is really going to be a big game changer for Pin-On herself. Where this gets interesting is 50% defense is a lot. So maybe this is good for like AI survival and auto comps. The problem is Ayaha and Toha have multiple viable auto comps with gold Fafnirs at expert difficulty. At master difficulty, there are multiple viable comps with up to 2 gold Fafnirs. You can do 3 with a little bit of RNG. So I don't know that that's the content where you want this. Like maybe if you're trying to auto legend for fun, maybe you want it there. But like there's not a big need for this, and certainly not a big enough need that you would ever look at this dragon and think like, that's where I'm going to spend my sunlight stones, which are precious resources. So I just don't think this really hits the notes that it needs to. Where things, of course, could get interesting is Lilith's encroaching shadow. We saw that she swaps between favoring light adventurers versus water adventurers. So perhaps in the water phase, if that's the second phase, as appeared to be the case based on the image that was shown, well, if Pinon's sigil is counting down in phase 1, even though she's not in the battle, that would certainly be a real blessing to her, because then it doesn't matter if you're spamming your 4 strikes or what you're doing. Like, that potentially gives you your sigil release relatively early into phase 2, depending on how long the first phase lasts. If things work out that way so that most of the fight that Pinon is involved in, she already has her sigil released, then sure, this is a potentially really good dragon fur, and if there are unavoidable attacks and damage, then this helps her a lot with her second skill uptime. But even then, like, going through all those hoops, you're not getting that strong of an adventurer, so I just don't really see a lot of applications here. Maybe, I mean, the thing is, if you even get hit once, well, yeah, the effects are lost upon taking damage. So I guess if you get hit once, this might block it, but then if you get hit twice, you'll lose the defense as well. So maybe if you need to be really tanky to survive the Lilith's Encroaching Shadow and the Sinister Dominion quests, then maybe this gets interesting, but as of now, I really don't see it, unfortunately. As cute as this plush is, and as creepy as this actual form of Gabrielle is in the background, I'm not seeing it. Alright, so let's move on to Faris. Faris is probably better, would be my take, but also doesn't really have a clear home or use right now. Really cool portrait once again, Manicaster off to the side, kind of like black flames here, and Rosarda in the background, the little salamander on the shoulder. So I do think that Faris looks to be implemented pretty well. He is a long-range style Manicaster. His skills include Carbunculus Spoleto and Prudence Knowledge. He has the Gauge Accelerator co-ability standard on Manicasters, and then HP 80% equals Wind Res plus 6% as his chain co-ability, which is also just an okay chain co-ability to have. His abilities are Uriel's Covenant 2, Sleep Res 100%, and Uriel's Judgment 2. So, like the other Apostle characters, he has this Covenant. He's going to start off with a debuff where he has the Lock Sigil effect, and over time, he's going to be able to translate that into less and less time remaining on the debuff, and eventually into an active buff that benefits him. But let's start with his skills, and we'll move on to that slowly here. So, Carbunculus Spoleto is shareable with a shared skill cost of 6. This deals damage to enemies in the line and inflicts Scorched Rend. If his sigil is released, it also inflicts the Uriel's Wrath debuff. The way that Uriel's Wrath debuff works is that it has 3 progressive levels. Level 1 for 15 seconds reduces enemy strength by 15%. Level 2, 15 seconds, strength by 20%. Level 3, only 10 seconds, strength by 30%. And Scorch Rend res by 20%. And how these levels interact is that if Uriel's Wrath is inflicted while already active, it gets raised a level. And if it runs out of time, it gets lowered a level. So even though level 3 only lasts 10 seconds, if it runs out, it's reduced down to level 2, and if you reapply it, you're going to get back up to level 3, so that's pretty nice. As for the damage, so when your sigil's not released, 2709 for 3810 skill energy seems okay. Manicasters do charge up their SP pretty quickly, although he isn't a rapid fire style, but still, if you've ever played with Ilya, you can just shoot and dash pretty quickly to charge up your SP. And then when your sigil is released here, you're doing even more damage. So again, good damage. That's not even counting the Scorch Rend ticks and Scorch Rend Punisher that you could potentially use. And that's when you also get the Uriel's Wrath debuff, which is a significant strength debuff. I mean, 30% strength is a lot to reduce strength by. One downside is that your sigil has to be released first. I have been experimenting lately with autoing Volk, also using Gold Fafnirs on Expert and Master difficulty, also been autoing Master without Gold Fafnirs. And what I found with Expert is that the time that I would want this strength reduction most is phase 1, but my sigil is not going to be released in phase 1. In phase 2, my problem right now is actually damage output, not necessarily taking too much damage. The problem I'm finding and the fail point that keeps me from getting any kind of 100% setup is really the Blood Moon. It might be because I don't have Gala Leonidas, I do have Gala Mim, but what I find is it's hard to strike the balance of including enough survival co-abilities to guarantee you live through teleports with 4 gold Fafnirs, as well as guaranteeing that you have enough DPS to consistently clear the Blood Moons. So I want strength reduction in phase 1, and I want extra damage in phase 2. With this Uriel's Wrath debuff on the first skill not applying until the sigil is released, that is a little bit of a downside when I look at this character as a potential auto-inclusion. Besides that, of course, not having any survival element that he's contributing to my Grace or Halloween Lowen to help them survive auto battle, since they often are the first to die to teleports, is also a little bit of a pain point here in a setup like the one I'm using. Okay, so Pruden's Knowledge grants the user the Uriel's Blessing effects, okay? It costs 7560 for skill energy, and then special effects, Uriel's Blessing, reflexive action, charges 3, does not stack. Doesn't really explain what this does, so that's very vague. What I would guess is that this is like an automatic free dodge roll on a red enemy attack or untelegraphed enemy attack that can be iframed. Basically, if you fail to iframe, I think that this just gives you a free roll, a free pass. I don't think it's necessarily going to be able to work on purples though, but if it does, that is potentially really big. That could be awesome for when Volk is teleporting. That is one of the failure points in Auto Volk that can come up if you're not prepared to tank through that. So this could be a nice way around that. And if it doesn't work with purples, this will probably be pretty good in things like Resentment, just for your DPS uptime. One thing to note though is like with a lot of recent characters, their kits are very complicated, and so AI performance can vary. Like, for example, normally AIs just dodge roll automatically and they have a chance to evade attacks. Well, if Uriel's Blessing is active, is Faris just going to not dodge roll? Is he, knowing that he has this, going to just continue his combos and keep attacking rather than trying to roll around the battlefields because he knows that he has a free roll on 3 hits? Or is he still going to do the normal AI thing and like continuously try to roll away from reds? I don't know the answer to that, but how his AI performs could potentially be pretty influential on how good he is. Obviously in the player's hands, you can make of this whatever you want to, but in the AI's hands, I have no idea what reflexive evasion is to begin with, nor do I know how it would actually work. So we'll move on. Uriel's Covenant 2 inflicts the Lock Sigil debuff on the user at the start of quest for 300 seconds, alright, and grants the user a unique Force Strike. While charging this Force Strike, if the user is hit by an attack that can be avoided with the damage immunity provided by skills, aka if they're hit by an attack that can be iframed, they'll automatically dodge the attack, deal flame damage to enemies in a line, and inflict them with the Uriel's Wrath debuff. Very nice. So they don't spell it out here, but that is the same Uriel's Wrath debuff as before. So the fact that you also get that by doing your special Force Strike to iframe attacks, that does mean that even in the first phase of the fight, you could potentially start getting this onto the enemy, even though your sigil isn't released here, and maybe get 1 or 2 levels on it. So that's actually pretty cool. One other note is that Risarda and Nevin, their unique Force Strike called out the fact that it could not apply damage. This doesn't say that, so if you finish charging this Force Strike, maybe it'll also deal damage on its own, or maybe you have to actually get hit for it to deal damage and do the counter, automatic dodge and counter motion that it does. But that is just something I wanted to point out, so the charging itself might result in some type of damage dealing attack. Lock Sigil's remaining time will be reduced by 36 seconds each time the user dodges an attack. That's also very solid, and only a 10-second cooldown here, which is not bad. Better than Risarda, probably better than Pinon with how much reduction you're getting, and Pinon's Force Strikes just take a long time to charge to begin with. This actually, you could potentially unlock your sigil pretty quickly by itself. When the Lock Sigil effect wears off, the user will be granted the Sigil Released effect instead. Sigil Released increases damage to Scorch Rend enemies by 35%, damage dealt by standard attacks and Force Strikes. Reduces Oh, increases, and then increases damage dealt by standard attacks, 4 strikes. Okay, so you get Scorched Rent, Punisher, effectively 35%. You get extra damage with your standard attacks and 4 strikes, and the amount skill gauges are filled by standard attacks and 4 strikes also goes up. Oh, so you get extra SP generation, like built-in skill haste, I guess? Also increases the user skill gauge fill rate by 12% while they have the Uriel's Blessing effect, so... Huh? Okay. So you get like double extra skill haste here, and more damage on standard attacks, and 4 strikes, and 35% Scorcher and Punisher. This is a really good bonus for the Sigil lock wearing off, and it's not even that complicated of a character. The AI already likes to dodge roll a lot of things. The AI can dodge roll purples, which humans can't do. So the big question I have is like, is that going to actually work with this character? Will that count for, dodging an attack, reducing your sigil time, or does that not count? Will this AI be different and not really be able to pull off stuff like that as easily? A lot of questions here, but this looks like a really good payoff for something that you already want to be doing. And with mana casters, long-range mana casters, their traditional playstyle is shoot and strafe, shoot and roll, basically. In the past, it's been because they have little side effects, like I think Ilya shoots off some shots, and Joe gets some critical rate or something, and Yoshitsune, who's not a long-range mana caster, but she also has some effects for dodging, of course. She kind of seems really similar to this character looking at things. But yeah, this is really interesting. I think like it's already something you want to do with this type of weapon, and you have a really good payoff for doing it. Now, some things to consider if you're playing Expert Volk, that first phase, not a lot of red attacks that you could dodge. I guess you could roll through Volk's slash, his spinning slash that he does. You could roll through his lunges that he does. But with the purples, unless you jump over them, you can't really dodge those. So that's not great. Otherwise, if it's like buggy, maybe when you roll into a trap, that counts as dodging it. I doubt it would work like that. So yeah, there's not that many moves that you dodge until Resentment actually starts up, at which point there's a lot of things you can dodge because there's tons of red lines going on the battlefield. But either way, that Resentment, that first one, it is a 10-second cooldown, but if your Resentment is long because you're using gold Fafnirs, let's say, or otherwise just soloing a harder difficulty like the Resentment in Legend is kind of long if you don't have a fully built team, well, you could probably get your Sigil unlocked pretty quickly into Phase 2, I would imagine. And on Master Volk, he starts off by doing a lot of red attacks and swipes and stuff and dashes. So this seems well suited for that content. As somebody who doesn't have Gala Leonidas, this alternative Flame Manicaster, I don't think he serves the same roles because he's not like Overdrive Shred here, but looks very interesting to me at least. And then Sleep Res 100%, cool, nice passive to have, gonna make it easier with Phase 1 on the Purple Shuriken, probably a little better than Stun on net, although a little worse if you're trying to bring Flame Adventurers against water or flame enemies. Uriel's Judgment 2 inflicts an attacking enemy with the Uriel's Wrath debuff when the user dodges that enemy's attack. Nice! So that's another way to get Uriel's Wrath stacks on the enemy. After activating, this ability will not activate again for 15 seconds. Okay, so this is interesting. So this is a little better than I thought, because even if, let's say all you're doing in Phase 1 is like right before Volk teleports, you just dodge, your Faris just automatically dodge rolls Volk's lunge attacks or something, right? Well, for dodging, you're already going to get one Uriel's Wrath debuff. And then if you were also countering, I don't know if this stacks together. If you're countering and then that causes you to automatically dodge, is this automatic dodge a separate dodge that counts toward the Uriel's Wrath debuff? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that gives you 2 stacks or just 1 stack. But then again, when Volk disappears, I think he cleanses all debuffs. I know he cleanses his afflictions unless you time it really well. So maybe that doesn't work. Like, basically, what I'm thinking here is the failure point in Volk's Wrath is the teleporting. Could these debuffs actually help with that? And I actually don't know if they really can. So maybe that doesn't work as well as I would like. Still seems like a good character, though. I just think that right now, Volk has a lot of options. It already has Legend released, it has Time Attack released, so it's not like we're hurting for Flame adventurers to really bring to that content and break it open or do new things with it. Even Legend has been autoed before, I think, so yeah, I'm not really seeing the application for Faris here just yet. Now, when it comes to the Sinister Dominion, could there be a good use for Faris? Is there going to be a lot to dodge? Is the strength reduction going to matter a lot because you take a lot of damage? Is the fight long so you want Scorch Rend resistance reduction? All of those things seem possible. And the high amount of strength reduction here, combined with something like, let's say, Joker's shared skill, which also reduces strength by a lot without any kind of random chance like Silas's, that's also sort of interesting. There's actually a lot going on here that I like. I would expect that Faris is actually going to do a lot of damage too, but it's just not enough with the current slate of content to really push me over the edge and think that this is a character that you must summon. We're going to take a look at what types of gameplay comes out. I'll be on the lookout for analysis that go up on the Reddit or other YouTube channels to see if I can glean more. And when I make a video about the event, I'll be sure to share any updated insights or thoughts with y'all, since this is always more of an early impression type thing than a formal analysis. But that is my take on this Summon Showcase. I think that neither of the two things featured at 5-star really quite get there, so this is your time to save amidst a sea of really tempting banners. This one is even tempting as well for story reasons, I think, and for pretty solid characters. It's just that we've had hit after hit with these banners, all killer, no filler. So other than one Dragon special, like, I don't know what else we're gonna get this month, but I am saving what little Wormite and what little dignity I have left. That is going to do it for today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this analysis video, this Should You Summon. Thank you as always for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.